Okay, guys, this is not an easy video to make, but it's absolutely necessary. I'll be showing how I um, did not, uh, save my son from abuse. How, um, by not dealing with my own shit and doing what I needed to do, I had, in a way, contributed to my son being abused. Um, this all is coming from the on Monday when I had that severe detox dump. My body did went through that severe detox dump on Monday. I'm still recovering. It's Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, February 22nd. Um, when I was laying in bed and in severe pain and agony and just going through all those symptoms, nothing else went through my mind other than this one scenario, which I'm about to go over. Now, before I get to that, I'm going to start off with Brandon made a video about a month ago, and he was going over his childhood and his childhood remembrances and how fucked up and traumatic and abusive and crazy it was and all the things he was exposed to. And that triggered something in my head after listening to that video, but I couldn't get it. It triggered a remembrance in my head, but I couldn't reach it. I couldn't reach exactly, like, because there wasn't enough clarity. There was still blockages on it. And this stems from even before. So last year, he had, and maybe before that, and maybe a couple different times in his life, but last year he had come to me and said, that he had told his grandma, my mom, when he was up visiting one time, that about his mom abusing him, and that she had written it down or typed it onto her computer, whichever one, and that she had told him that she was going to come to me and that we would get it all figured out, right? And I told him that time last year, and then if he had told me a time or two before that, I told him, no, my mom never came to me with anything. I have no clue what that is about. I didn't hear about it. I don't know. And then when I watched his video a month ago, it like triggered. I was like, wait a minute. It's like I had this vague memory of my mom telling me about this when I went to go pick Brandon up as a younger kid. And I can't remember this because he used to go up there for 1 week out of the summer, and I used to drop him off, and he'd hang out up there with his grandma, and I'd pick him up. But I don't know if this was during the summer, or if this might have been a wintertime visit, like a rare wintertime visit. I don't know. Everything's so foggy around it. Okay, so on Monday, when I went, sorry, hold on, guys. Sorry. On Monday, when I went through that detox, the only thing rolling through my head was that whole memory. What the fuck, man? Was that whole memory of that situation when I went to go pick him up from my mom's, I don't know what to do here. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, I don't know if you can see me or not when that happens. My iCloud thing keeps on popping up to sign in. I don't know why. So the memory came rushing back to me of my mom telling me when I went to go pick him up, Richard, uh, Brandon told me all about Norma's abuse and how she's been abusing him. And I got it all written down and documented. And I just remember I brushed her off, like I just brushed her off to the side, and I just said, I don't even remember exactly what I said. I could just see myself brushing her off to the side. And then it didn't go any further than that from what I can remember. But so when that memory came back to me, it was just kept on replaying over and over, but it was with all the emotions and the feelings of what happened. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not making any excuses. I'm not, but I have to tell my story of what happened, because this is important, because with these abusers, and, I would consider that to be an abusive thing if, for my mom to have told me that and then to have not acted on it and done something about it. Now, and certainly contributing to his abuse, because I don't know if he ended up going back there. I don't know where he was living at the time when he went up there. I just, everything's so vague. The timeline is very vague. And in fact, I got this timeline right here on this board at the moment. And this is the first time I've been able to come up with this timeline. So, through the detox, it has allowed me, what it did was, it was such a deep detox that it released emotions and memories and everything else from way back then. I mean, this is at least 18 years, 15, 18 years ago, something like that. Between 15 to 18 years ago. So, this is going to be a testament to how these abusers will do abuse, and it hurts them. Okay, so like in my case, the reason I didn't do anything, and I'm just saying that this is, I mean, because I didn't even remember this until I detoxed. It's all very confusing, and I just want to get this out because this is a good example of how we bury and we hide things, and then like we through the trauma and abuse that we suffer in our lives, we literally forget these things. Like, these things are buried and tucked so deep inside of us that to get them out is unreal. I mean, I had to go through a severe detox after almost 80 days of juicing to be able to even access this memory. So, you know, the only thing I can think that, well, okay, so the memory attached to while I was rolling around in bed, and that kept on replaying in my head, was all the emotions. And I started, I remember just laying up there, just rolling in agony and getting mad at my mom. And it wasn't even like there were any words to it. It was just like all emotions. And I guess because I was reliving what I felt when my mom tried telling me that Brandon was being abused by Norma, and I knew that he had only, see, Brandon had lived with his mom only for about 8 or 9 months, maybe. In this period, I'm about to go over this timeline and explain when that was. But otherwise, he would just go there for weekend visits here and there. So, you know, I remember it upsetting me so badly because I was stuck in her house while she tortured me for year after year after year after year. And yet she's going to sit here and try to say that my ex-wife had abused my son when he doesn't even live there, or at that time he had only lived there for a short period. I can't see, the timeline's very weird. I don't know when he was visiting, if he had been living there, if that was the 8, 9 month, 7 month span that he had been living there, or if that was just the time he was visiting, like afterwards. So I'm not sure. Either way, it doesn't make it right. I'm just saying, for me, for my own, I'm trying to see where I was coming from that made me bury this so deeply. But I just remember laying in bed on Monday when this all came up and having that emotion attached to it, like getting so mad at my mom for daring to even bring abuse up in front of me that somebody else had done or might have done, when she put me through years and years of unbelievable abuse, and she never did anything. She never apologized, she never admitted, she never nothing, right? So, and again, this just shows how, these abused people who pass this abuse on down to others just cannot admit to others being abused. Like the people they're abusing, they can't admit that they're abusing those people because they see the abuse that was put upon them as so much worse than the abuse that they are doing or have done. And that abuse is almost like a justification because it makes them feel better, because nothing else does. They were never able to work it out, or get it out of their system, or process the emotions, or have their abuser, admit to it, or anything else. So I came down here. Well, Brandon came up on yesterday afternoon. He came up there and he was talking to me about something unrelated while I was laying in bed. I had been laying in bed all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. He came up there early afternoon, was talking to me about something unrelated. And then he came downstairs, and then when he came down, and so after I pulled out of that on Monday, like I was so exhausted and so sick and so out of it, like that didn't even cross my mind again until he came up there and talked to me on Wednesday. And then when he came back down, I was like, oh shit, I need to talk to him about this, because on Monday I was like, I need to talk to Brandon about this, but I was in no mood. I couldn't even talk. I was out of it. So I came immediately back down here, falling back down. I said, hey man, I got to talk to you about something. And I told him, and it wasn't easy. It's very hard to tell him, hey man, yeah, your grandma did tell me that you were being abused by your mom, and I brushed it off and didn't do anything about it, or so this is not easy to do, guys. This is very difficult to do. But this is also a testament to how I can't beat myself up and carry that shame and guilt. The only thing I can do is live in the present, and just go with it as I'm healing, and as these things are being brought up and coming to the forefront, being courageous and being open and honest about them, instead of when it came up just hiding it and going, oh, he doesn't think she ever said anything, so I'm not going to say anything, it's not going to hurt anybody. That's all part of the healing process, is sharing and getting and being courageous and getting this stuff out. And hopefully it unlocks, healing for Brandon. Hopefully he can forgive me. I mean, that's got to be hard for him to now have to process, okay, well, Dad had a chance to save me and he didn't fucking save me, right? or whatever. I'm not trying to put my head in his. I'm just saying, all the places that puts him in his life right now. So, on so many levels, this is impacted. That's why the most important thing we can do is be honest and open and courageous and share these things and take it. This is my responsibility to share the truth as it comes to me. So I have to do this. This is my responsibility. If I didn't do it, it would sit inside me like a cancer and eat me away, and then it would definitely hold back my healing and possibly Brandon's healing, and bring up other monsters in other ways, in unexpected ways, that can affect in all kinds of other ways. So, instead we're going to get this cancer out and cut it off and get rid of it. So yeah, I came down here and told him right away yesterday after he had come upstairs, and I remembered when he came back down. Uh, and so I guess the best thing to do would be to go over this timeline at this moment, just to, because I'm putting this all together. Like I haven't even been able to, I wrote this board out early this morning. I got up with a splitting headache. I made my 81-day juicing update and put it up on the other channel, and like my head was just everywhere. I couldn't even do it. So I went, and it was like an 11-minute video, and I was like, okay, I'm done. And I went straight upstairs and laid down, and I woke up, and I came straight to do this video. So this is just now, I'm processing this as I speak, because I haven't been able to think about it. Like I've been so out of it through this detox the past few days that I'm just now, this is actually my healing process. You're watching it. So I don't know what year this was, but the timeline starts here. This is when I left my wife. I took both my kids with me, and moved out. I was at the new place down here because we were up in Manassas. I moved about 45 minutes down here where I'm at now in Front Royal. About 6 to 8 months, I had both my kids with me. As soon as I had moved out, I went into this severe depression. I mean, severe depression. I wouldn't even call it, like back then, I didn't even look at it like a depression. I was just like doing what I had to do. I just couldn't operate. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I couldn't focus. I couldn't nothing. I was fried, man. I was severely depressed. And I had never had anybody tell me what depression or anxiety or any of that stuff was. I had never recognized it. I mean, up until that point in my life, you did what you had to do. You manned the fuck up, and you fucking made it happen, And for the first time in my life, I couldn't make it happen. I was about, I guess, 25, 26 years old. So this was about 20 years ago. Yeah, about 20 years ago. So about 2003, 2004, 2005 time period. So I had my daughter for 6 to 8 months. Well, what happened was immediately I just started drinking. I started drinking extremely heavily. I'd wake up. I moved some people into my house. I moved a bunch of people. I rented this gigantic farmhouse with many bedrooms in it, and I moved people in. I moved a couple in, a white couple that did. The dude was a mechanic, and his girlfriend was, babysat for me. And then in-house babysitting, and then and then I moved two Mexicans in with me that were working for the contractor guy that I worked for, that had the stroke and everything. But I moved them in with me. They were working for him, and they just had to cook and clean the house, and so that's how we did everything. I paid for everything, and they did their thing in that manner. So it was sort of like a weird situation. And what I did was I'd wake up in the morning, get my son on the school bus, start drinking, pounding drinks, and pass out by noon usually, and then wake up around 2, and then start drinking again, and then pass out, at 10 o'clock that night or whatever. I realized, and then, so in that 6 to 8 months, first 6 to 8 months, it was about 3 months later after I had moved out, because their mom had been going through severe postpartum depression after having my daughter. And so, she was nowhere around. And after 3 months, she had gotten a boyfriend. She came out of her postpartum depression. She was coming down to get, I think, both the kids. I remember she got Sammy. I don't remember if she got both the kids or not. But she was coming down every weekend, every other weekend for something like that to get the kids. So I saw that she was doing a lot better. And then about 3, 4 months after that is when I said, "Hey, look, I got to move Sammy back in with you. I'm having a hard time functioning." So so about 6 to 8 months after leaving, I moved my daughter back in with her. When I first moved in, I had signed a year lease. So within that year, it was time to, or within that year, I had moved into this other place. Man, yeah, see, my timelines are really fucked up still. And that the timeline problem I've always had, that I always wondered what that was. I don't know if it's the medulla. I think it's the medulla that regulates. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember, but the part of your brain that regulates time periods gets fucked with in childhood abuse and as adults with unhealed childhood trauma and abuse, they have problems with timelines. So I just figured that out in about a year ago. I didn't even know that's why I had problems, such difficult problems with timelines. But so then I moved in with, okay, yeah, no, this timeline's right. Okay, so 6 to 8 months, I moved my daughter in. A year later, so 6 months after that or so, I had moved out of there, moved into another place, and I had paid up 6 months rent in advance. And by the time that 6 months was up, I still hadn't had a job. I still couldn't work. I was still a severe alcoholic. I was still severely depressed. I had moved everybody out of my house. The last one that was left was Brandon. I got the was Brandon. And that's when I went to my rich aunt's house, who are now billionaires. They were, filthy rich millionaires at the time, to ask for, I think I needed $1,200 to stay another month in my house. And that's with me putting money down, because I think my rent was like $1,600 on that farmhouse at the time. And they basically just shunned me away and gave me a check for $600. And it was like the next day or a couple of days later, I got evicted. I was losing the place I was in, so I had to move out, and I had to move Brandon straight back into his mom's house. And for the next 6 to 8 weeks, I was couch surfing, living in my car and couch surfing on friends' couches, no job, no money. And then shortly after that, I got a job. I saved up. I was able to get a place I rented. And then, so the time period in between giving Brandon up and me getting this place was about anywhere between 7 to 9 months. I'm not sure. It wasn't any more than 9 months, and it could have been 6 months, but I'm not exactly sure. It wasn't very long in between giving Brandon up and taking Brandon back. So, I had got myself stable and everything. And what I'm thinking is that it was in between this time that I had taken Brandon up to see my mom. And that's when he had told her about the abuse, and then she tried talking to me. And I don't know if I was just unable to at that time to even get them back or anything. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm going to have to keep on healing and let that come as it comes. And then, 6 months after he moved in with me, maybe 6 months, maybe not even 6 months after that, I had a major head injury, unhealed, undiagnosed, went straight to work the next day, was out of it for weeks, felt weird, but it was a major, major head injury. Blackout, everything, I mean, just gone. And then 3 months later, and this is just establishing the timelines with my head injury and how all this played in, because I probably also had one back here, but I can't even remember. Like I used to get them all the time, that it was just like small ones that it wouldn't even faze me. I mean, it was just shit that you were used to growing up the way we did. Like you keep on going. Oh, you can still walk. Okay, come on, you're fine. So, but this one was a major one. When I think back on my head injuries, that one right there was a major one. And then 3 months after that head injury is when I got with my second wife. I started seeing her again. Everybody was like, "Man, what's wrong with you? Something's wrong with you." Because it's like, why would you be with that person like that? And then it was 3 months after that I ended up moving into her mom's house with her. So just to try to establish a timeline here, so that way I can start to get a grip on exactly what transpired during that time and what's going on. But and then one of the most major head injuries, if not the man, I've had so many head injuries. I had one right after that. Right after, about 6 months after moving in with her, I had another major one. So, uh, I don't know. All this is new. I'm just going to have to do this as I go along and figure it out. I asked Brandon, when I told him yesterday, I asked him if he wanted me to get a hold of my mom and get her to send me the documentation that she had written down or typed down, when he had told her about the abuse. And because my mom is the type of person, she saves every receipt in her life. It doesn't matter how small it is. She saves every piece of documentation. She's had the same email address, same phone number, same everything her whole life. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't get rid of those things. So, Brandon said yes, that he would like to have that. I think it would be a huge thing to have, just because, who knows, like, how he remembers now compared to how he told the story then to her. And I just think it would be powerful, because out of me, him, and his sister, that would be the only documentation that one of us as a child gave in real time to anybody that was documented, about the abuse that we suffered at that time. Everything else has been told after the fact and from memory, foggy memories and repressed memories and everything else. So, I blocked her on my phone 2 years ago when I had this head injury, and so I unblocked her yesterday to send her a text message and request that she send me that information and send it to my email address. I sent her my email, and then I made sure that it said delivered before I reblocked her on my phone. But I still have not, as of right now, I still have not received a reply from her. And again, if she did really get rid of it, I find that so very hard to believe. 99.999% chance she would not have gotten rid of something like that. She would have held on to it. The only reason she would have is because she would use the fact that I had told her that I didn't want to do anything with it as a permission and to get the guilt off of her because she had tried to tell me, if that makes sense, like, her being an abuser and then being like, well, I tried, I took a step, and then, so who knows where that's going to go. Hopefully for Brandon, he can get that. But I don't know, just, I think, just what I'm remembering and knowing that, the memories are coming back as the detox is happening, knowing that this detox was so deep. So guys, that detox probably is what it's doing is pulling the heavy metals, the toxins and the poisons that have been built up in my bones, in my marrow, in my organs, in my tissues so deeply that these memories were stored in this trauma, and these things were stored in my body from so long ago that I'm finally, after 80 days of juicing, releasing them. So this is a testament on so many levels, for the power of healing and taking personal responsibility, being disciplined, being courageous and being honest, what it does. And, I feel bad. I mean, I feel really, I just feel like I really let Brandon down, but, it's hard for me to think of how I let Brandon down, not how I let my daughter down, because it was just a few years after this when that same wife, Norma, my first wife, wrote my son Brandon a letter saying, when he was 14, saying, okay, you have your life now, we have ours. After, me and her would switch the kids off every weekend. I'd get Sammy one weekend, she'd get Brandon one weekend, and we just were doing that for years after all this went down. And then all of a sudden she had gotten a boyfriend. She had gotten this new boyfriend, the guy she's with now, her husband, her crackhead husband she's with now. And yeah, one day she just wrote him a letter. She had dropped him off after him being up there to visit, and she wrote him a letter, and he read it when he got home, and it said, you got your life, we have ours, I always love you, you'll always be my son, maybe one day we'll see each other again. And it was all new to me. I was like, what the fuck? I tried calling her, she wouldn't answer her phone. I sent her a text message, she finally answered my text, and she just texts back, you're not seeing Sam anymore. And I lost it, so that's when she started not letting me see my daughter. I mean, that's when went up there and had the police called on me a couple times. They were living in Woodbridge by then, an hour and a half away. And I would drive all the way out there to try to get my daughter. And, she would just keep my daughter from me. And, my daughter was deeply in love with me. I mean, up until that point, my daughter, like, I was all she wanted, all she talked about. When she was around me, she would be like a monkey. I called her my monkey because she would, if I put her down, all she wanted me to do was hold her. That was it. She wanted to be held 24/7 by me. And when I would put her down, and by this time she's like, what, 6 years old, maybe 7. And, when I put her down, she'd just grab my leg and just wrap her body around my leg, and just, she refused to let it go of me. And, so she kept my daughter from me, and then finally I went through the courts. I was going through the court system. And I didn't. So I was going through the court system, but it was such a slow process. I mean, I flipped out the first court hearing. I flipped out because it had already been almost a year of me not seeing my daughter, and I told the judge, and the judge was like, "Okay, we're going to set another court hearing," and I flipped out. I said, "What the fuck?" I said, "I need to see my daughter, motherfucking right, fucking now," and I flipped out in court. I mean, they were getting ready to drag me out and contempt of court and everything, and you know, so we had tricked so then when I think it was after that court date, my ex-wife, so now this is a year later, my ex-wife hit Brandon up and said, "Okay, I'll see you again. You want to come and see me? I want to see you." And I don't know if she was doing it for court. I don't know what made her all of a sudden flip a switch and let Brandon see. What I think it was that she was deprogramming my daughter through abusive means, and she needed time to completely deprogram her, and it took her a year, because then she started. So I agreed. I was like, well, she's not letting me see my daughter, but I'm going to let her see Brandon, because I don't want to cause any more harm to Brandon over this. I'm not. I mean, what the fuck? Because I mean, I have no clue what's going on. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. So one day when she dropped him back off, at my second wife's father's house in Strasbourg, and Brandon tricked his mom into saying, "Hey, I think I had Cassidy, which was Jessica's daughter." However it happened, I had the kids trick Norma into letting Sammy come up to the door to say hi to everybody, because everybody loved Sammy. She was this fro. She had a fro. She was just a character. And everybody had loved her, and nobody had seen her for a year after her just being showered with attention every time she came down. And so she let my daughter come up to the door to say hi, but they had to tell her that I wasn't there, that I wasn't at the house. And so when Sammy came up the door, I jumped out and I grabbed my daughter around the waist, and she saw me, and her eyes got big, and she went straight as a board. And when I grabbed her and picked her up, she just remained straight and flat as a board, and she was shivering. And right then I knew that she had abused my daughter severely. And because for that girl to go from hanging on me and just being completely in love with me to deathly scared, shaking, and stiff as a board after a year of not seeing me, I was like, wow, man, she abused the living fuck out of my daughter. And so I put my daughter back down, because I didn't want to, because I saw, like, oh my God, I'm gonna something bad's gonna happen to my daughter. Like, so I put her down immediately, and then everybody else came up, and then, like, I stood off to the side, and we're standing on this, because my father-in-law had this big front porch, and my ex saw that, because she was sitting out on the car on the curb, and she came flying out of the car, screaming and yelling. And I was so, like, everything hit me at once. And he's got 3 steps up to the top of up to get to his porch. And she started coming up screaming, and she went and she grabbed my daughter's arm. And I was standing there, and I just remember grabbing her hand and squeezing so hard. I mean, I imagine I almost broke her wrist. And she let go of my daughter, and I grabbed her and I picked her up, and I said, "You fucking bitch abused my daughter." And I picked her up and I threw her. And I mean, I threw her in the air. She went through the air and rolled on the grass through the yard. And so I'm looking at her, and I'm just like in a rage, and man, that's such a bad feeling every time Mm. Man, that's hard to think about. Mm. Man, just to know how these women have abused and unbelievable abuse to people and lie and do whatever they want to do, to get what they want and make their life cozy. And I wonder if, when that happened, if the abuse that my mom had tried confronting me about my son, if that had come up in my mind too. And when I threw off the porch, I was just standing there in a rage, and my stepfather had come up behind me and just bear hugged me and said, "Stop, Richard, stop," you know. Um, and then they look at me as this abusive person, and these women tell lies, and so yeah, I wonder if the abuse that Brandon had suffered that my mom tried telling me about, I had come up at that moment too when I realized what had happened to my daughter. Um, so I had a chance to save my son. I didn't, and then I was too late to save my daughter. You know, and then so it was like 6 months after that when we finally had our last court date, and I was able to. The judge looked at my ex-wife and he told her, if you keep that man away from his daughter one more time, if he comes in here and just so much as says you give him a hard time about seeing his daughter one more time, I will throw you straight in jail. And I remember looking at her and she was just like snickering, like laughing, And he goes, are we clear? And he would not let it go. He made her, acknowledge what he said before he let it go. And my daughter's still, trauma bonded to her mom and still unhealed and dealing with all that pain. And I can't think about that stuff right now. So yeah, I'll keep Brandon updated as I remember things and I process them through. And that whole time, um, that their mom was keeping my daughter from me. My mom was talking to me. I remember I would call my mom up pissed, and I was filling my mom in with what was going on and everything for that year and a half. Well, little did I know, but my mom, and to come to find out, it was the last time me, my brother, my two sisters, all of us were at my mom's for a Thanksgiving, and it was right before I had my final court date, I think. I don't think I had gotten Sammy yet. It was right before my final court date, or maybe right after. Maybe I had gotten Sammy. Maybe it was right after. Either way, it was right before or right after my final court date of being able to get to see Sammy again. And we were up at my mom's for Thanksgiving, and I was going off about Norma and how she's a abusive bitch and blah 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 blah. And my mom out of nowhere goes, "Rev Richard, you're not that great, and Norma's not that bad, and you really made her life hard." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And she goes, "Don't you talk to me like that." I said, "No, what the fuck are you even talking about right now?" I said, "What the fuck's going on?" Because I knew my mom was an underhanded, conniving, manipulative bitch. And I knew as soon as she said that something was up. And because she was playing both fields. I knew it because I seen her do it when I was a kid. So when she said that, I knew that she was playing both fields. And come to find, so she goes, I said, "Have you been talking to her?" And sure enough, she had been talking to my ex, the one that abused Brandon, that Brandon had brought the abuse up to, and talking to her the whole time while she was abusing my daughter, and on her side for keeping my daughter away from me. Disgusting, man. Absolutely disgusting. And it was maybe a couple times prior to that when I had tried confronting my mom and saying and setting her down and trying to talk about the abuse in my childhood, and then it was a couple times afterwards, and it was a no, yeah, something like that, man. I can't remember. My timelines are so fucked up, but yeah, that last time, I tried talking to her about it, and her reasoning to me was, I said, "Mom, I need to talk to you about the abuse you did to me when I was a child." I took her aside all by herself, and she goes, "Richard, you know, you were just as wrong as I was, and we both are at fault, and we just need to move on." And that's when it was over. I was like, "This motherfucker, this piece of shit." And yeah, so anyways, man, so that's why it's important to be honest with your kids, give them closure and everything. The only way to heal is through being open and honest and courageous. The only way to get these things done and move on and to reclaim your authentic self and your essence is to be able to get away, get these things out, work these traumas, work these abuses out emotionally, talking, physically, all these different ways. Get them out of your system, get them out of your body, move them out of you, because you can't hold new wine in old flasks, right? In old wineskins. We have to make way of the old to get ready for the new. And the soul can't occupy a body that the soul can't occupy a body that the ego has completely destroyed and is wrought with all of these demons, devils, entities, bad memories, and repressed bullshit and all that. Man, you got to be responsible. You have to clean yourself out completely. So this is a testament to so many different things. I welcome your comments, because I'm sure there's many different things, because like this goes into like the healing process, this goes into the healing process for others, this goes into our responsibility as parents, this goes into how unhealed trauma and abuse leads to like my not being healed from my trauma and abuse and becoming a severe alcoholic and not getting these things out properly and dealing with them led to the abuse of my son and my daughter and the eventual all the craziness and trauma and shit whirlwind of a life I've had and everything else. So whatever comments you want to leave, feel free to leave them. I'm sure it'll, thoughtful comments, not stupid shit. I don't need anybody saying they feel sorry for me or oh, good job. I don't need that shit. This is about setting the example. This is about aligning thoughts, words, and actions, living in truth, fact, and reality, and being a human, being empathic, all powerful, all knowing, and taking personal responsibility, being disciplined, courageous, and honest. So it's very simple. It's nothing spectacular. It's not, again, all this goes into like the whole shame and guilt thing. Even though these are new memories that are coming up, I can't, I feel bad at the moment. I feel bad, but I'm not carrying shame and guilt. I'm just processing through. Now, if I wasn't processing through and I just wanted to wallow in it, yeah, I mean, I could definitely lay up in my bed and be depressed for the next 2 weeks and feel shame and guilt and not get anywhere. But instead, I'm processing it through in order to make room and clear out, to dig even deeper for deeper healing, to be able to get more of these memories out and more of these things out, that will allow me to heal further and Brandon to heal further and hopefully my daughter to heal further and, hopefully be a testament for other people and open doors for other people to heal further. So, yeah, take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.